Everybody, this is Tuesday Morning Grind, episode number 31. Today we have Rob Campbell with us. Rob is a retired Army colonel, brigade commander of the 101st Airborne Division, leadership coach and keynote speaker, and author of two great books that I've had the opportunity to read. Thanks for being with us, Rob.
Good to be here, man. Ready for this.
Awesome. So, I don't know if the audience knows, but you are my business partner's boss back in the Army, which I think is awesome, which is how we connected. And, you know, he's inherited a lot of the leadership stuff that you've put out over the years that we've had the opportunity to implement in real time here at Risk 360. So a ton of appreciation for the work that you've been doing. But I'd love to know about your journey. How did you decide to go into the military? Then once you finished the military, now you're doing leadership coaching, which is awesome. So how did you get into all that?
Sure thing. It all started with beer. I mean, that's really where it all comes back to it every time, it seems. But I was a basketball fanatic in high school. If you'd asked me if I was going to be a career Army officer, I would have laughed at you. I had no desires to do that at all. But I didn't make the team freshman year in college. This is 1986. And there goes that passion, right? Now what? And I was broke, and the Army National Guard Massachusetts was offering sign-up bonuses. My dad was a reservist. You know, I was a patriotic American. I was like, all right, I could do that. So decided to do that. You know, that's beer money, right? I mean, that's what that money meant to me. So it was really just about dollar signs at the early stage of this, and then went off to basic training summer of '87, and then realized that, you know what, I think I like this stuff. The infantry, you know, being a ranger, serving a cause bigger than myself. I didn't quite know what was happening, but I stumbled right into something I was pretty passionate about. And got commissioned in '89, went on active duty in 1990, and never looked back. 27 years, 5 months, 7 days. All wonderful. And, you know, the ability to interact with and serve with guys like Christian White is just, you know, the most important thing. It's the people that I remember the most, and you know, he's one of the great ones for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know a lot of what your first and second book also, but first book covers is like some of the leadership philosophy elements that you developed while you were in command. Can you talk a little bit about that first book, the whole philosophy that you came up with in terms of leadership style? And
Happy to. Yeah. When I got out, you know, in 2016 when I retired, I was like, oh, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. I knew I enjoyed writing, and I kind of stumbled into book writing. There's a funny story behind it, but always enjoyed leadership, learning about it, practicing it, and I thought we had tremendous success in the brigade that Christian was a part of, and what we did. We achieved, you know, #1 ranking for human resource performance in all of the U.S.-based brigades. That's 34, among other things, retention, and you know, I still have officers that are excelling in the Army because of the investment we made in them. So I thought I had a story to tell, and I wanted to share that with people, and that's what, you know, what it's all about. A lot of us have books inside of us, and I had one inside of me and didn't realize it, and so I just got down and started writing and cranked it out. The book, so it's personal, not personnel. Where that came from is I was talking with an HR professional at Big Army, where they managed all the people, and they were trying to move a soldier in the month of February from one post to another across the country, right? Big move, but we were used to that kind of stuff. But it's February, and he's got 2 daughters, one of which is a senior in high school. He's got a house with a mortgage. His wife is working. So what do you think that does to a guy, especially his daughter, in the month of February? I knew that clearly. Massive disruption. So you get one of two things. They uproot the family and move somebody in her senior year, or he leaves without the family, which is likely the option. And what a horrible time to do that. Couldn't the Army wait until, you know, graduation? So the point I made on the phone to this professional was, look, this stuff is personal. It's not personnel, right? Christian Hyatt has a life and a family and things going on, and we ought to take that into account. No, we can't always cater to your personal needs, but in this case, I think we could have. And so that was kind of the genesis of the title behind all that. And it really, and the book describes investing in people, which was my philosophy, leadership philosophy, that I took into command of this large organization as its CEO. And there were a lot of things I didn't know. There was this, thought of, okay, I knew what I want to do, but what does the organization need? That might be something different. I could change and move around that easily. But one thing I knew was never going to change was investing in people, putting people first, seeing through the lens of people through everything we do, caring for them, nurturing them, growing them, getting to know them deeply and their families. I knew that if we did that right, any mission that came our way, we would succeed. So the book describes that. It talks about a journey of self-awareness, getting to know your people, different things, different steps that we did, and the successes that we had.
Yeah, one of the things I like most about your book is that we have been able to, at Risk 360, implement like specific tactical items to help people become better leaders. So in your book, you talk about things like writing down a leadership philosophy and kind of self-authoring and articulating to yourself who you want to be as a leader, and then working with a coach to, to expand upon that. Where did you come up with like some of those tactics when, as a leader, to help people become leaders? Because from our experience, the way you move up in technology is often, you enter and you become a really good subject matter expert, and then your boss says, hey, you're a good SME, we should make you a manager. And then when you get promoted to manager, you have almost none of the leadership skills to lead people, to coach people. And that's kind of a gap in corporate America today. And then reading your book, it seems like you've put together some specific tactics to help people gain some of those skills, or at least articulate them to themselves what those skills need to be. I'd love to hear how did you develop that on your own? Was it something over the course of your career? Where did that come from?
You nailed it, Christian. That's what happens all the time in business, in too many cases, where what you described, you're really good at technology, you're really good at finance and whatever it is, and we mistake intellect and performance, job performance, for leadership, and we place somebody in those positions and they falter. It's not their fault. That's just what the system does, unless you step back and look at it. I learned everything I learned from watching leaders, good, bad, and ugly. It was really, and I was very fortunate in the military. I'm very aware of that when I walk into a private business like Risk 360. You can't afford to send somebody away, for leadership training for 6 months. You can't. So what do you do in place of that? Well, some of the things that you guys are implementing there. But I watched leaders operate. I can think of several that I tried to emulate, several that I didn't. I knew I wouldn't be like them. And that's where I really kind of started to form my own philosophy of investing in people and people-centric leadership, because I always appreciated the bosses that led that way. I always enjoyed serving under people like that. And so that's where it was formed, year after year, mistake after mistake, learning and trying and growing in that journey. I think you certainly have to do something to help somebody be a leader, but at some point you got to throw them into the deep end of the pool and let them swim and figure this out, but continue that coaching and mentoring.
What do you think it is? Like, there seems to be, it's almost counterintuitive for some reason, because when you begin leading people, you become a task manager where you want them to go, you want to delegate, you want the organization to perform in a meaningful way, but sometimes you skip over the step of developing the individuals under you that are charged with that success. And I think that's probably true in the military, and also true definitely in corporate. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, it is. It's like a magnet almost, or it's gravity, right? A business survives through cash flow. We see what needs to be done from a task perspective, a mission perspective, sales, finance, whatever that might be, technology solutions. And we get tunnel vision towards those places where, okay, Christian, I asked you to do A, B, and C. I need it done by end of quarter. I'm tracking all that. Okay, but what about the person behind that? What about you? What am I doing, to invest and coach and mentor and have those other discussions outside of what you're working on as a more holistic approach? Because I submit that those are just as important as task A, B, and C that I gave you to complete by end of the quarter. I can spell that out very quickly. I know what right looks like. I know what I need to tell you to do. All that goes with that. But what I need to do alongside that is Christian, how you doing? How's the family? Don't you have a kid graduating this Friday? Okay, great. Why don't you take off early to be there for that? I noticed you're slipping a little bit. You're not the person I know. What's going on in your life? How can I help? Hey, listen, I want to grow you. I know that, your future position is somewhere, whether it's in this company or it's somewhere else. It's this place that you want to get to, as you have described. So we're going to put a plan together to get you there, right? And I'll share some readings, get a mentor for you. I'll help you personally. I'll make some connections, build out your LinkedIn profile. All of that stuff is kind of like a holistic package. And you've got to look at those things that I just mentioned to the same level of importance as you might just giving you a task and wanting you to accomplish it. So it's how we see them, and it's how we raise them up as priorities. They're competing sometimes. Sometimes the glass ball is task A, B, and C, which we know has to get done. But if that's all you focus on and you ignore the other stuff, you're not going to get what you're looking for over time.
Yeah. I think I took for granted. I've always heard the phrase that, I've heard people say leadership is sacrifice, or things like that seem kind of cliche. And I don't think I appreciated them until I became an entrepreneur and were charged with, running an organization. And in many ways it really is, because you have to give up a piece of who you are in terms of your time, in terms of your patience and attitude, to help others. So how that manifests itself for me is, you might have people who stop by your desk every 15 minutes where you'd really like some quiet time, but you need to give them, your full attention so they can get what they need. Or you might have to, have side conversations with people endlessly, even though you're an introvert, and it's hard to do that sometimes. How did you manage that? I mean, I think I read that you managed something like 5,000 individuals when you were in the military. What was that like? What was the demand on your time? How did you manage that?
Yeah, it is a challenge, and you're absolutely right. At the beginning, you talked about selflessness, and that is the cost, I guess, if you will, for leadership, is that you do give up some personal freedoms. You do give up, the selfish nature of ourselves and taking care of what we want and getting what we want for the benefit of others and the benefit of the organization. And that's what makes a great leader, is that selflessness, that it's all about the team and it's all about the people around me and it's not about me. Now, you can go too far with that, where you just sacrifice yourself completely. To the second part of your question there is, when can you catch a break? How do you manage this kind of stuff? I had, 5,000 people's a lot, right? I didn't know every single person. I couldn't possibly. But I had an architecture in there of 7 subordinate franchise, let's call them, organizational leaders that could influence the organization down below me. So I was very tight with them. We communicated a lot. I invested in them. I did all the things I'm describing with them. Below that, I think we had about 50 or something company level commanders, very tactical, rank and file, right there, very direct leadership. I spent time with them as well. What I did, and your calendar will tell you whether you got this right or not. Look back at it and say, okay, if I believe in this, whatever it might be, how is it reflected in my calendar? I committed to a third of my calendar being people-centric activities, counseling, mentoring, sensing sessions, family events, things like that I knew were critical, that needed to be done. I had a brigade to train, and we had a mission to accomplish, just like a business. And so, 3/4 of my time was spent on that, but I gave a good dose of focusing on people. There's just so much you can do to try and, appease everyone. I think this is part of developing and mentoring new people, because if they're coming and asking you questions all throughout the day, that might pose a problem, right? Maybe you haven't set them up for success, given good intent, trained them proficiently enough, or whatever else it might be. The other side is, like you mentioned, if you're introverted, then you do need that quiet space. And that's not selfishness, that's selflessness, because when you come out of that quiet time, you're a better leader. You can better serve those people and better serve that organization versus just completely sacrificing of yourself. Long answer to a short question.
No, that's great. You mentioned something interesting there that I think about, because a lot of organizations, especially executives, they lose span of control, and that at one point they could manage everybody on the team, the team becomes 100, 200, 300 people, then they have, some lieutenants under them, the 6 or 7 people that they have to train, who thereby have to coach others. So as an executive, you become the trainer of trainers, which it sounds like that's the same thing that you did. How is that different? How did you go about training your top level leaders to give the 50 below them the attention that they needed?
It really started with, vision, values, and culture. And I say that a lot inside of businesses, because if you get that right, a lot of other things will take care of themselves, right? At Risk 360, you have a set of values you live by. And so it was upon me to repeat that, become a parrot, in a sense, and talking about that all the time and getting that into to the DNA of those leaders below me and inside my span of control. Our vision, where are we headed, right? And how is what you're doing, Christian, related to our vision? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And having those constant conversations to develop them and to get that influence out below where it needed to be. And, I did have experience. I had served longer than them. I had been in positions that they were currently in. So I was able to bring that to the conversation as well. And part of it was just being vulnerable and transparent and opening up to say, hey, listen, I'm your boss, but I don't know everything. And I know you don't know everything either. So let's have that conversation from that standpoint and learn from each other and grow together. And there are things I can help you with. There are things that you can help me with. And that's the way to get, to get around that.
Absolutely. So I know you, after you left the military, obviously you've become an entrepreneur, leadership coach, and speaker and author. Talk a little bit about that, because I know entrepreneurship is glamorized, the celebrity entrepreneur, but it's a grind. It's tough. It's hard. How have you managed that transition and entered the foray of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, the short answer is by screwing it all up. Because when I came out of the military in 2016, I wrote the book spring of 17, and that's when I took the gateway drug. And the gateway drug is you get a tax ID number, a website, and a business card, and poof, you're in business, right? No, I wasn't in business. All I had was an idea, and I didn't get my first paying client until January of 18. It is hard. I mean, businesses fail because they run out of cash or they don't have a market for what they're selling. And that is difficult in entrepreneurship, and I learned the hard way. Now, look, I have a pension, a military pension, as a backdrop. So I am very fortunate in that respect that I wasn't relying on my business completely to support a family. That isn't to say, give up on your dreams and don't try entrepreneurship. Certainly, I believe strongly in it. You ought to be the captain of your own ship. But take the long view, perhaps. If it's a startup that you want to do, maybe it's start later, but you set the stage for that. All right, you want to disrupt the landscape industry? Go work in it for a while. Get a sense of that's what you truly want to do. Learn the language and the customs and all that goes with it so that you're better prepared. Put away a lot of cash. You'll need that, to set yourself up. You're right. There's a lot of misinformation, and it bothers me on entrepreneurship. I'm the executive director for Vet to CEO. It's a veteran entrepreneurship program. I don't teach it. The guys that are teaching it have been in business for decades, so they bring a ton of experience. But when we say entrepreneurship, there's this notion of a startup, right? You jump into your uncle's garage, slave off his internet for a few months. Next thing you know, you're Mark Zuckerberg. And as you know, it's not that easy. Far from it. Well, there's other paths to entrepreneurship. Franchise is one, right? An existing organization that already has a market, already has systems, it's functioning. Yeah, maybe that's a path. Or buy an existing business, which is more possible than one might think. That's, again, already functioning, already working. I have my leadership business, and it's doing okay. It's not great. It's a slog, man. You got to chase it every day. You got to show up every day. That's one of my philosophies in entrepreneurship. But I'm also looking at buying an existing business right now to round that out and spread out the portfolio and get some revenue going on a side business. A friend of mine, just a quick story, Marine Raider, was in 13 years. Marine Raider was the tip of the spear of the Marine Corps, special operator. Fantastic Marine, fantastic rifleman. At the 13-year mark, he just saw a future of deployments. He had a young girl, wanted to take another path, so he transitioned out long before he had in retirement and went into carpet cleaning. Now, he's not passionate about carpet cleaning, but carpet cleaning for him is a vehicle to get him somewhere. And so he jumped into an existing business in an existing industry, brought his skills to bear there, and he's chasing some other things right now. But he's doing so with a good income stream behind him and some good experience behind him. So, yeah, I could talk for a while on entrepreneurship, but it is, I'm a massive fan of it, but find the right way to do it and be smart about it, because you can really kill yourself in the process.
You know, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are people, not just entrepreneurs. Like, there's some romantic aspect of, you know, writing a book or being a public speaker. A lot of the things that you're making a living off of. Talk about writing a book. What was that process like? Did you hole up in a cabin for a year and do it? Was it hard? Was it easy?
Yeah, I certainly learned a lot on the first one. I was at a conference. This is the funny story I mentioned earlier. I'm at a conference in 2017 in January at Whistler, British Columbia. And it's a bunch of entrepreneurs, and we ski most of the day, and we mastermind in the afternoon, and really cool, neat group. I was invited up there as a guest, and was sitting there with a group of guys, and I'm sitting next to this real estate dude that wrote a book in 100 days and was talking about it, you know, and this dude was a machine, and it pissed me off. I mean, I've been surrounded by terrorists, right? I've served in the heart of darkness. Okay, I can write a book. Let me show you. So I wrote mine in 90. But I did. I actually, he helped me. It was a lot I needed to learn. One of the tips I give people that desire to write is just get it written. Get the words down on paper. Don't worry about grammar, typeset, font, nothing. Because there are people out there that can help you get that thing packaged up right. My publisher has done that for me. And so that's what I did. Now, I did start with an outline. I needed to step back and say, okay, what am I writing about? And so I kind of laid out maybe the major chapters, like knowing yourself. Okay, I could easily dedicate a chapter to knowing yourself. Good, there's the title. And then you can break it down in terms of what it is you want to address. And I did that for the whole book. And I also got I had a writer coach that I hired for a small fee. She kind of kept me moving and doing the right things. And then I hired a publisher to get the book out because I just wanted it to be a first class production. And they helped me kind of package that thing and put it together so much. But in doing that, I really put a good book outline together. It's really a book proposal, and it's almost like a business pitch in a way, right? Who's going to read this book? Who won't read this book? What other books out there are written like this already, right? That shouldn't stop anybody from writing and producing something, because there's so much of a need for it out there. But yeah, that's what it was. And I had time in my hands. I took a year off after I retired. My wife was working to get us over the hump. So I had time in my hands, and I just, would do my stuff, my morning routine, and I would get up and write. I have found for me, and I'm working on book number 3, is I need to isolate. I've got to get away from things, like maybe go to a library, or go off, like I vacation a lot in the mountains, and we'd go up there and I'd shut everything down and focus on writing. And I would get good chunks of it done. Because I got to be in the right mindset, and I got to be just because I get distracted easy. It was just nice for me to kind of isolate and get those things done, and that's how I chipped away at it. You might only be able to carve out an hour a week, but if you can, you ought to do that and get started writing.
Yeah, I do this thing where I haven't written a book, but my thought is I have enough patience and time to basically write a blog post. So my theory is if I can string enough blog posts together, maybe I can compile them into a book one day.
Yeah, you're totally on it. I'm doing the same thing. I write 3 blogs a week. I think you guys get them there. And I got 40,000 words together already. So easily have a book.
How difficult have you found marketing? Because our Chief Revenue Officer, Ryan McGowan, he gives a little talk where he says success is 2/3 exposure, 1/3 skill, which can be a little bit disheartening. But I take someone like yourself, it's like all the qualifications in the world to be coaching individuals on how to be good leaders, but now you have to have the exposure.
Yeah, it's been a huge awakening. I, like many veterans, I thought I could just ride my resume into this, right? I mean, all I did in the military, all my experience, I would have thought it'd been easy, right? You know, just walk up to someone, hey, I'm an Army colonel, free combat tours. Oh, thank God you're here. Come on in. Here's some money. No, it didn't happen that way. One of the awakenings I had was I'm not in the coaching, speaking business. I'm in the marketing business because, like you said, I'm good at those things. I know that. But if I can't convince somebody of that, if I can't sell what I do, then I got nothing. I mean, I can be as good as I can sharpen my blade all day long, but if I'm not telling somebody, you know, how good I am and convincing them and addressing their problems and laying out what solutions I can bring, then yeah, it doesn't matter. So it was a shift for me when I discovered that I'm in the marketing business in terms of where I spent my time, which is really fascinating, especially for entrepreneurs. When you look at your day, where are you spending your time? Is it more on admin backdrop stuff? Well, you're not chasing anybody there if that's what you're doing. Can you hand some of that off? And I hired 2 military spouses last year that helped me with some of the administration stuff so that I can focus on networking, interacting, and finding that next client. Marketing.
Yep, that's always a awakening for any entrepreneur that thinks because they're a subject matter expert. Well, now you got to tell people about it. So I read your first book, loved it. We've implemented Risk 360, and then you've written your second book, and it's out, At Ease. Can you talk a little bit about that? What inspired that book? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, I did the first one. It was like, okay, I didn't really, again, any aspirations to write a bunch, but I had done it, right? I went through the process and I knew that I could. And the second book, At Ease, which is about veteran transition for more senior service members, those that have spent a long time, even with Christian White, who spent, you know, probably 8 years or so, maybe 10 in military. And that, you get institutionalized after a while, having served that long. So I wrote it for that reason. But I was navigating transition myself, and there were ups and downs and things I was dealing with. Just the whole decision to retire, I wasn't wired to ever tell the Army that I'm done, thank you very much. I was just going to serve the institution, the military, for as long as I could and just let them tell me to leave one day. And there was nothing for me to reference when I went through that journey, nothing for me to reference on the outside in terms of how do you do this as a senior service member? So I wanted to fill that gap. And so the second book was very therapeutic for me because it was like journaling. You know, when you're wrestling with something and trying to figure out what's happening, it's really helpful to journal. And that's what that was. That book took not 90 days, probably about 3 years to make because I was traveling this journey and I kept adding chapters as I went into a product. And so it was really fulfilling to kind of get all that packaged up. And then I'm really proud of it. It's helped a lot of people think through things that they just wouldn't have. And there's nothing in the system out there right now that fills that, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have 3 former Army officers on our team. Of Christian White, we have Jessica Lucas, who was a West Point grad and Army officer, and then a guy named Tim. And, they've kind of echoed the similar story. I didn't serve in the military, but seeing these guys, this is the first job they had after military service. So watching them kind of navigate that and work together, you're right. There's not a playbook necessarily on how to think through that. So it's interesting seeing that.
No, there isn't. I mean, think about it, Christian. What these guys are going through, and they're fortunate that they're in an organization like Risk 360 that has a good culture, solid set of values. It's got a vision. It cares about its people. That's a good fit for a veteran because that's where they come from. But my brigade of nearly 5,000 men and women was never going out of business. I never worried about payroll, right? It was just never going to fail. Certainly it could fail, but it was never going out of business. Money really wasn't at the top of the list. I mean, I had a budget officer. I was a good steward of government funds in my budget, but I didn't pay it much attention. I did what I wanted to do, and we did what we needed to do, and we focused on other things. Now, in Risk 360, cash flow is everything, because if you don't have it coming in, you're dead. I mean, you can be the greatest culture in the world, but if the money's not working in a business, then they ain't going to work. So that's just a different environment for veterans as we step into this. And it's akin to being placed in a foreign country in some cases, where they're just dealing with things they never had to before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, I've read your books, and I've also seen you speak, and I can attest to the value of those books and the leadership philosophy that you bring to the table and the speaking stuff. So if folks want to engage you either on some coaching or keynote speaking, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks for all that. Two ways. My website, robcampbellleadership.com. You can always find me there. And then I'm very present on LinkedIn. I do live by the philosophy of show up every day. So you find me at Rob Campbell Leadership on LinkedIn and connect with me there. Love to have a chat with you.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys like this kind of content, you can check out Tuesday Morning Grind on YouTube. You can just search Tuesday Morning Grind or look up Risk 360 and check out our playlist. We're also on all the podcast apps. So if you like iTunes or Apple or Spotify, whatever you like, we're there too. And Rob, thank you very much for producing some fantastic leaders like Christian White and others on our team, and for everything you do. I appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
All right.